Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Jackson Crawford. There is some contention over what exactly the earliest surviving runic inscription is. Most scholars will agree that the oldest that can really be confirmed is the Vimosa comb, carved about 150 AD in Denmark. But there are a couple potential earlier inscriptions, and the problem comes down to what you consider a rune, and sort of comes down to what you consider the origin of the runes. So, one of the earliest possible runic inscriptions is on the so-called Negau Helmet. There's actually several Negau helmets, but most of them have Celtic names carved on them. These helmets come from a site in Slovenia, date to about 300 BC. Now it's worth noting it's 300 BC, not 3000 BC. I think sometimes people really get confused about BC timelines. This is, later antiquity. This is not close to Proto-European times as 3000 BC would be. This is, late classical Greek times. And the inscription, which can be read as saying Harigast, a clearly Germanic name. This would be something like Hergestir, which is a imaginable Old Norse name. I'm not sure that's actually attested as such, but army guest. Is then followed by perhaps Tiwa, which could be read as priest or something deific. At any rate, probably from the same root as Old Norse Tivir, meaning gods. Now, this would then be apparently somebody's name, and then possibly a title, or something else is going on with the Tiva part. There's also an I there that's a little hard to say what to do with. I've wondered if this name is maybe intended to be in the vocative, so it's actually the name is Harigasti, like I'm calling out to Harigast. But it's hard to know what form the vocative would have had in a Germanic language 600 years before we have a well-tested Germanic language in the form of the Gothic Bible translation by Wolfila. Now, if you look at the shapes of the letters here, notice that the inscription goes right to left, not left to right. This is actually very common in early runic inscriptions, but also in early inscriptions in the Greek alphabet, Roman alphabet, Etruscan alphabet, and Etruscan-derived alphabets in the Alps. What this really looks like is one of those Etruscan-derived alphabets from the Alps, right? It's derived from a Greek alphabet, but with some letter forms you wouldn't see in Greek. For example, the H doesn't look like Greek eta, which is, by the way, the Greek eta is actually used as an H consonant in some Greek alphabets, just not in the sorority alphabet of classical Greece or Aristotle. And then, the alpha is a little odd looking, but for the most part, you have letter shapes that are recognizably Greek in origin. One of the most interesting letter shapes to me is the G, which looks like a psi. This is actually an alpine feature where you have some of these alpine alphabets, I believe Venedict specifically, that reuse the Greek letter psi as a G, probably under Etruscan influence because the Etruscans don't distinguish G from K. So when these people pick up the alphabet, they don't have a clear letter to use for G, so they use one of the leftover letters in this case. What looks like a psi, although I think actually in the, quote, red Greek alphabets it's technically a chi, although it looks like a psi to our classically trained eyes. So the question here is this a really early window into what the runes come from? Or is this a side branch, right? Is this a Germanic name? I think pretty much everyone can agree it's a Germanic name, but that's written in a different alphabet that didn't become the runes. I think that latter possibility is a little bit more likely. It's a little bit hard to get exact rune shapes out of this. I mean, the H of runes looks more like a Roman H or a Greek letter eta. The R in runes has the extra bar that's not here. This looks more like a Greek letter rho, classical Greek letter rho. Of course, there are Greek alphabets that have an R-looking rho, but this alphabet is not derived from one of those. If this is quote-unquote early runes, then it suggests that the runic alphabet underwent a ton of change in the next few hundred years before the first inscriptions that we can identify as definitely runes from Denmark. For instance, that the R has got that extra bar, the H has lost the top and bottom closure, but that's not impossible either, right? It is possible that originally the runic alphabet, the alphabet that would become the runes, had a more Etruscan-y alpine shape like this, and over time was influenced by, say, the Roman alphabet, got a more Roman-looking H, more Roman-looking R, that kind of thing. Maybe even somewhere along the way, someone had been writing a G, like this sort of psi-looking letter, and calling it Chi, hears that actually Chi looks like an X, and so the G turns into an X shape. It's just really, really hard to know, because there's no intermediate inscriptions between this and something like the Vimosa comb that we know is runic. So it's an interesting question. It's certainly, I think, the earliest attestation of any Germanic language in writing. And I would call this Proto-Germanic for sure at this early stage. But whether we're looking at the earliest form that we know of the runic alphabet, or just looking at someone who, after all, was also writing some Celtic names and some kind of alphabet of Alpine derivation, someone who's just writing a Germanic name in whatever alphabet they know, and this isn't what eventually becomes known as runes. Very, very hard to say, and it will have to wait for more inscriptions showing up from earlier than 150, if they're out there. I suspect that they are, and I am truly 51 to 49% on the Negau Helmet thing. I think that it's 51% a sidetrack. This is just someone writing names of foreign mercenaries, perhaps, in whatever alphabet they know. But 49%, this is what we're looking at is the runes before they underwent influence from, say, a Roman or more classical looking Greek alphabet. Very hard to say, very uncertain, but very often in the real scholarship of the past, we are just scratching our heads and being uncertain. Well, that's a quick look at a very interesting question, and I hope that you find it interesting as well. I hope that if you enjoy these more than 600 videos about questions in Norse language, myth, etc., that you'll support me keeping them going on Patreon. And for now, from beautiful Utah, let me wish you all the best.